free to get a sandwich while you're waiting there. For those of you who know me, I don't really like to overly prepare for things. I tend to fly by the seat of my pants a little more than most, and it's for good reason. I mean, for this presentation, I did a lot of work. It was hard work. I had to push through a lot of it because it was emotional for me, and there were times I wanted to stop, and I didn't want to go any farther, and I just put things aside and not look at it, not touch it. But I knew it was important work for me. There were things that I hadn't accomplished in my journey from leaving the Mormon Church, and this helped me get there. And my wife was very instrumental in that part as well. So this afternoon, so just like I knew would happen, I gathered up some things. Here's some Mormon scriptures, and I'll talk about those in a little bit, of things that were important to me. I have a nice photo album up here of my Mormon mission, which I'll talk about. But in the journal that I kept, I pulled out and dusted it off, and it had a lot of dust on it. But I found this letter that was passed out, and I'd like to read that to you. So when I was 15 years old, I was in a class of a bunch of my friends and cousins, and had a nice leader that we all loved, Dwayne Hunt. Still probably the greatest guy I know. And he had us write this letter to ourselves for 5 years in the future. And it just kind of fell out of the journal. And I got it and I thought, I got to share this with people. And so here I am. Dear Shannon, in 5 years I plan on you being on a mission. Your testimony will be strong, and you will be preparing to find a mate worthy to go to the temple. You should have your life planned. You should have the education started and know what you want to be. You should be morally clean and never have tasted beer or smoked or tasted tea or coffee. Your 15-year-old buddy, Shannon. And those were obviously the most important things to me at age 15. And probably until I was 32. Those were important. To get married in the temple. To not eat certain things. To be really cautious of what I wear and what I do and what I say. And I'm going to explain to you today that Mormonism isn't just a religion. It's not something you do on Sundays. It's a culture. It's everything you do. This is a picture. Do you mind flipping those lights on? Thanks. So, this is a picture of my parents in 1976. This is me with the curly hair, my older brother Sean. My mother was a convert to the Mormon Church, and they got married and then had 2 children. She converted. In the Mormon religion, you can go to the Mormon temple after a year after you've been baptized. And the significance of the Mormon temple is that people are married for not only time here on earth, but forever, for eternity. And you're a family as long as you live those principles for life and forever after that. And so this is a beautiful picture of the Mormon temple, and these are the doors behind it. I've got another picture of my wife and I there. But I noticed there was a theme in my life. Here's a picture of the Salt Lake Temple, the same temple. This is me and my grandpa and my grandma. My mom, my dad, 2 of my brothers, and my little sister. And this is a redheaded stepchild here, is a friend of my brother's who tagged along with us. We were going out to go to the training center in Provo, Utah. And my brother was on a mission in Oregon. He was on a mission in Utah as well. And so we all went out to see my brother before then. We stopped at the Salt Lake Temple. And here's this beautiful picture of my family. And obviously, these key places in my life, this iconic Mormon temple pops up. Now, I grew up in Oklahoma, 1,300 miles away from that. So twice in my life already, there's more times than that, we've made that historic drive out to Utah. When I met my lovely wife, who was sitting in the audience, we decided to get married and wondered where to get married. And at the time, there were probably 45 or 50 Mormon temples. The closest one to us was Dallas, Texas. Lacey decided that she wanted to be married in that Salt Lake City temple. Her parents were married and sealed there. My parents were, and it was important to me as well. Hear about that? So here's the picture of us. It kind of looks Cinderella-ish, I think. It was a lovely time. It was a beautiful place. I keep flipping. Sorry about that. So after 32 years, I decided that the Mormon Church wasn't for me, and I needed to leave. And it wasn't something that I went looking for. It kind of found me, and it was hard for me. But I went through with it, and I left. And the picture that's shown to you 3 times now is the picture of how I felt when I left. And really, it felt as if I cut myself out of my life. And because everything was tied up in that. My family, obviously my friends, the things I did on Sunday, the things I did during the week, all of those things were tied up in there. It was a life, and I felt like that didn't exist anymore. I want to briefly just kind of go over some Mormon history for you. I know we're in Minnesota, and there's probably not a lot of Mormons out there. Maybe you have some friends that are, maybe not. The Mormon Church was founded in 1830 by Joseph Smith in Palmyra, New York. The story goes that he was a 14-year-old boy. He was confused. There were a lot of religious teachings going on at the time, a lot of revivals, those types of things. And he decided he would pray to see which church to join. And so he goes out to this grove of trees and he kneels down and he starts to pray, and then God and Jesus appear to him and tell him not to join any of the churches. They're all wrong. And so he's going to start a new church. And he does that. And the church goes along for a while, and there's some turmoil, and they move around a lot. And they wind up in Nauvoo, Illinois. And in Nauvoo, Illinois, a printing press is built, and they print the first printing of the paper, and it's all negative about the church. And Joseph Smith gets pretty upset about it, and he burns the printing press down. So him and his brother go to jail along with 2 other guys. And in 1844, Joseph Smith and Hiram are assassinated and become martyrs. And then becomes the trek of Brigham Young taking over the church in 1847, moving it to Utah as you know it today. Lots of other history that we don't have time to go over, but if you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. The church has grown tremendously over the next years. Obviously, missionary work is important. Lots and lots of young men are out every day spreading that message. And the membership in 2008 was 13.5 million. Some of the Mormon beliefs, the Mormons believe in the Old and New Testament. So, use the King James Bible. They also believe in the Book of Mormon. And Joseph Smith was shown by an angel where some golden tablets were translated those, and that's what became the Book of Mormon. And so they do have a separate scripture. Mormons, there are a lot of rules of Mormonism. Mormons tithe 10% of their gross earnings. And I know there are a lot of religions out there that tithe a lot, and that it's important to give back to the church. In the Mormon church, it's a little more strict than that. At the end of the year, you actually go and do a tithing settlement. And you stand in front of your leader and you say, yep, paid 100% of my 10%, or I'm a part-tithe payer, or I don't pay anything. And some of the rules that go along with that, you actually get a card, a temple recommend, that says that you can go to the Mormon temple. And so you could go to church on Sunday, but if you aren't doing these rules, then you can't participate in the big things. The word of wisdom, you probably, if you know Mormons, you know they don't drink caffeine, or more appropriately, they don't drink coffee, tea, or those no tobacco or harmful drugs. And that's a pretty strict rule. Obviously, no premarital or extramarital sex, because you're supposed to cover your ears at that point. Good? Okay. So not keeping those rules not only keep you out of the Mormon temple, but they also, there's the threat of excommunication. And that's a scary thing for Mormons. I've been scared in that way as well. If I was scared giving this speech, and if this were to get published before I was able to get safely out of the church, would they excommunicate me? And though I'm fine leaving the church on my own terms, it's really scary to think that someone could kick me out and then my family would make assumptions that I did or didn't do certain things. And that was very scary for me. So Mormonism as a culture, and I talked about friends and family and those things. In high school, there is a class called seminary. And in Oklahoma, where there are not a lot of Mormons around, we actually met before school. So 5 days a week at 6 o'clock in the morning, we were at the church with all my high school buddies who were Mormon, and some that weren't. And we would have study of Old Testament, New Testament, Mormon history. And anyway, so we actually got religious teaching 6 days a week, at least. Another big piece was Boy Scouts, and for the girls they had other programs, but the Mormon Church and Boy Scouts tie very closely together. And in my family personally, there are 4 boys in my family. We were all Eagle Scouts. That was definitely a thing of pride. And in the greater family, so my grandfather, who you saw a picture of there, all of the grandsons are Eagle Scouts, and it was a big deal. And all but one went on a Mormon mission. And it was a big deal for the kid who didn't go. And it wasn't easy for him to be at events. You know, there were lots of questions on why he didn't go and what happened. And it wasn't easy. Home teachers, that's a kind of a new concept. But in the Mormon Church, you're assigned, a family is assigned 2 men who come to your house. And so I home taught other families. And I would go into those homes and check on them to make sure, you know, not only do they have food and water and electricity, but that they were kind of keeping those rules. You know, you'd sniff around, see if there's smoke or beer cans or those types of things. And then you would give a lesson, and so you had people checking in on top of that. We believe. So there's, Joseph Smith published 13 articles of faith. And just like in many religions and many schools, you would memorize those. And so the first article of faith is, we believe in God, the Eternal Father, and in His Son, Jesus Christ, and in the Holy Ghost. And there are 13, it gets pretty lengthy. I actually tried to make a slide, it was way too big. But I don't know how I memorized those. It's spelled out for you. There's very little room for choice because there are so many rules. The culture's there, the doctrine's there. There's just not a lot of choices to make in the Mormon Church. Leaving often means, let me go back here. So